Welcome back for another week of Kids Worship Lessons at Home. I hope you have had a wonderful week and you've enjoyed this amazing weather we've had. I know I have. I've spent some good quality time outside, just really enjoying it, breathing in the fresh air. So I hope you have got to do that as well, and I hope you have been enjoying your time with your families, with friends. If you got to maybe Zoom call or Skype or FaceTime or whatever you do, maybe you got to talk to them. So I just hope you've enjoyed that. So like I said last week, this week's lesson is going to be just a little different. We aren't going to do the same series that we've been doing. We'll pick that back up next week and finish hopefully just 2 more Sundays after that, and then we'll be back together. But we'll see. So today we're going to do an Easter lesson because it's Easter. And if you were at church, this is what we would be doing. So I wanted to make sure you got it at home as well. So it's going to be a little more different. I'm going to have a lot more things to show you and talk about. Not just going to read you a story, but we're going to kind of look at some things as well. I'm just going to walk through the Easter story and really remember all that Jesus did for us during this time of year where we remember. So sit down, enjoy, relax, go get yourself a drink, go get yourself a snack, whatever you want to do. Get yourself a notebook, take some notes, draw pictures, whatever. And hopefully we enjoy today's Easter lesson. So first, I'm going to read you a big book I found recently. It's about Peter telling the Easter story. So this is from Peter's point of view. So we're going to read that and then we're going to do another part. So here's my first part. Now it's kind of big, so I'm going to have to shift over a little bit so you can see it. But here's the first picture. So Peter tells the Easter story. It starts out with, while we were eating the special Passover meal, Jesus wrapped a towel around his waist and washed our feet. Only servants do that. Jesus was showing us that we should serve each other. After dinner, Jesus told us that he was going away. Then we sang a song together and he left the house. We walked with Jesus to the Garden of Gethsemane. But you all have heard that before. Jesus told us we'd all leave him. I said, I'll never leave you. Then Jesus said, before the rooster crows, you'll say 3 times that you don't know me. Jesus wanted to pray. He asked us to stay awake while he prayed. But so much had happened that day. Jesus woke us a little while later and wanted us to keep praying. But we were having a hard time staying awake. Jesus woke us again and said, they're here. I know who he meant, but then I saw swords and guards. They'd come to arrest Jesus. I grabbed my sword. We were scared. What if the guards arrested us too? We ran and left Jesus alone once more. I had to see what was happening to Jesus, so I quietly followed them to the house of the high priest, where I watched from a distance. 3 times people asked me if I knew Jesus. I was scared and I told them no. Then the rooster crowed and I realized that Jesus had been right about me. I cried. The crowd believed the lies the temple leaders told about Jesus. So Jesus was condemned to die even though he hadn't done anything wrong. They hung Jesus on a cross and let him die. Then they carried his body away and laid it in a tomb and sealed the tomb with a heavy stone. I thought about how much I love Jesus and how I'd never see him again. They were really sad. 3 days later, some women who had been to Jesus' tomb told us he was alive. We ran to the tomb to see for ourselves. We couldn't believe our eyes. The stone was rolled away and the tomb was empty, just like they said. That's his face. He was very concerned. He didn't know what was happening. So later, we saw Jesus for ourselves. Early one morning, we were fishing, and a man on the shore told us to drop our nets on the other side of the boat. Suddenly, the nets were bulging with fish. The man on the shore was Jesus. Jesus fixed breakfast for us, and then he asked me, "Do you love me?" I said, "Yes, Lord." Jesus said, "Follow me." Now, I hope you enjoyed listening just a little bit to Peter's story. Remember, that was just a piece of the story. So that was told from one person's perspective. But Peter started out, and he really served and followed God, right? Jesus had him to cast his nets at the end. That was kind of what happened at the beginning when Peter first became a disciple of Jesus. He was told to cast his nets in, and they filled it with fish, and they were like, "Who are you?" And he said, "Come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." So Peter went and followed Jesus, and he followed him for a while. And then it came to the end, and Peter ended up denying Jesus. At the garden, Peter did try to defend him, but later on, once they took him away, he ended up denying him. So sometimes, when we serve and we do things, sometimes maybe someone may say something and we'll be like, "Oh, I don't do that. I don't think that way." Or, we may act that Jesus is not as important to us, but like Peter learned, denying him or saying that we don't belong to him doesn't make him feel any better. In fact, it makes him feel worse, because that was the person who cared for him, and he was the person who was dying on the cross to save him, so one day he could go to heaven. So that was just a piece of the story. But now I want to go a little deeper into our story. So here's part 2 of what we're going to do today. So we are going to use our resurrection eggs. Most of you have probably seen these and probably seen what's inside the egg, but if you haven't, it's going to be kind of a treat. And if you've forgotten, it's kind of a treat too. It's my favorite way to talk about our Easter story. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read our story. And as we go through, I'm going to open the eggs and show you what's in each egg. Now, I know it's a little different than being able to hold it and pass it around, but just kind of imagine and think about it. If you need to pause the video to kind of think, or if I'm moving too fast, go for it. That's the beauty of having a video, right? Okay, so here we go. Open them one up. Okay, so I'm going to start with the first page. Now, the first page has to do with my blue egg. Okay, so this one's what we're going to open in just a second. It says, Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, "Go into the village in front of you, and immediately you will find a donkey tied and a colt with her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone says anything to you, you shall say, 'The Lord needs them,' and he will send them at once." The disciples went and did as Jesus had directed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and put on them their cloaks, and he sat on them. Most of the crowd spread their cloaks on the ground, and others cut branches, palm branches, from the trees and spread them on the road. Now, that was from a little excerpt. It wasn't written exactly, because remember, sometimes when we talk about the Bible, we don't say everything word for word. Sometimes we put it down into words that maybe are simpler for us, but that would be part of a story if you want to go read it in the actual Bible, from Matthew 21, verses 2 through 3 and 6 through 8. So, one little blue egg. What's inside? Well, let's see. Oh, it's a little donkey. We have a little donkey. Now, I wonder why. I bet you at home can remember part of that. And you remember our story about Palm Sunday and how Jesus walked through the people on a donkey, or road. He didn't really walk, did he? And they put down their palm branches or their cloaks so he could walk on, because they knew who he was. They knew he was God's son. And so they were showing him a lot of respect and showing that, yeah, that's who you are, and you deserve a king's welcome. Because often when kings came in, they would ride on something, and then the people would gather and watch. So they knew he was the king of all people. In Jesus' day, most people walked everywhere, but sometimes kings rode on donkeys or horses when they entered cities. The people would stop what they were doing and watch the king ride by. On the day that Jesus rode into their city, the people were thrilled to see him. They believed that he was the one true king who had come to save them and fill their lives with joy. The people showed their happiness by spreading tree branches and coats on the ground. This was their way of showing honor to Jesus, much like we do with the red carpet to a lot of people who may make movies or something like that. So here's our picture. If you can see, she's walking through and they're spraying their cloaks. And there's our donkey. So that's our first egg. Number 2, we've got our light pink egg. Now this one's kind of important. Says, then one of the 12, whose name was Judas Iscariot, went to the chief priests and said, what will you give me if I deliver him over to you? And they paid him 30 pieces of silver. And from that moment, he saw an opportunity to betray him. And that little excerpt was from Matthew 26, 14 through 16. So if you want to go read what the Bible says exactly, word for word, then you can go sit down and read it. But we got our silver coins. 3 of them. You couldn't see them that time. I have 3. That's to represent the 30. So each would represent 10, and we would have 30. I don't know if you can see. Trying to focus. There you go. So now we have our donkey and our coins. It says, not everyone was happy to have Jesus as his king. Some people only pretended to be happy, but on the inside, they really didn't want anything to do with him. One of those pretenders was a man named Judas Iscariot. Some other men hated Jesus so much that they wanted to kill him, but they needed the help of someone who was close to Jesus. Because Judas Iscariot was a pretender, and because he was greedy for money, he told these men that he would help them capture Jesus if they paid him 30 silver coins. So there he is. He's getting money from the priests, the people who didn't like him. And then he was going to turn over Jesus. Now we have the light purple egg. And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, drink of it, all of you, for this is my blood of my covenant, which I poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. And that's in Matthew 26, 27 through 28. So inside our light purple egg, we have, but you can guess, we have a cup. So that's to represent what Jesus gave the drink in. So that way it represented his blood that he was going to shed on the cross for them. Jesus had a special dinner with his disciples, 12 of his closest friends who traveled with him and learned from him during the meal. Jesus stood up and held up a cup and gave everyone a drink, and he said something that was hard for them to understand. He said that the wine in the cup was his blood. He didn't mean that they were actually drinking blood, but the wine was a symbol or a picture. Sometimes we use that a lot in the Bible. We use symbols and pictures of his blood. He wanted them to remember this special night and covenant or promise he was making to them and to all people. Oh, and do you know what that promise is? If you keep listening, you're going to find out. Next, we have our orange egg. Our orange egg says, and they went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, sit here while I pray. And he took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, my soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch. And that's from Mark 14, 32 through 34. So what's inside the orange egg? Well, we have praying hands to represent when Jesus went into the garden to pray. And he prayed, remember, for a long time. I don't know if you remember the story, but he prayed for a long time. And he prayed so hard that he started sweating blood, which was something that only happens when people are really upset. And there's a lot happening at one time. And so he prayed for a long time, you know, talking to God about what he was about to do and if he really had to do it. But he knew inside that to save people and so that me and you can go to heaven and be with him, he had to do it. Jesus was willing to die. For once he said, no one takes from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. You see, one of the remarkable things about Jesus was like no one before or since. He was with God and man at the same time. The God part of him was willing to die because of his great love, but the human part did not want to experience the great pain that he would have to suffer by dying on the cross. Now, I have a question. When you are sad or afraid, do you pray to Jesus? Because, sometimes if you are, you should. Because maybe during this time, there's a lot that we don't understand and we don't know. But that's something we can bring to him too. And even tomorrow, or today, or any day, you can thank him for what he did and the fact that he chose to go and die. So here's a picture of him praying. Now we have our green egg. Then Pilate took Jesus and whipped him. John 19:1. So inside there, that's what they would, so something I think it would look like what they would have used. When Jesus finished praying in the garden, and the men who wanted to kill him took him as prisoner, then they brought Jesus to Pilate, their ruler, and they had Jesus whipped. The whip used was hard and long, and it hurt Jesus so much that he bled. He hadn't done anything wrong, and the men who wanted to kill him were afraid of losing power. So they wanted Jesus out of their way. They knew that if people really believed in Jesus, the Son of God, which he was, they would follow him. Next, we have the yellow egg. That's one we kind of talked about earlier. But it says, but Peter began to invoke a curse on himself and to swear, I don't know this man of whom you speak. And immediately the rooster crowed a second time. And Peter remembered how Jesus had said to him, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. And he broke down and wept. And that was taken from Mark 14:71 through 72. Now, what do you find in the yellow egg? You find a rooster. Because remember, Peter, Jesus said, was going to deny him 3 times as a rooster crowed. So, you may wonder what a rooster has to do with the Easter story. But for Peter, one of Jesus' disciples, the sound of a rooster crowing triggered great sadness and caused him to cry. Here's what happened. Peter was one of Jesus' closest friends. And he once promised Jesus that no matter how dangerous things might become, he will always be loyal. Jesus could depend on him. But that began to change when he realized that those who planned to kill Jesus might kill him too because he followed Jesus. In fact, Peter was afraid that even he denied knowing Jesus. Just the evening before, when Peter had promised to be loyal, Jesus told him that he would indeed deny knowing him, not once, not twice, but 3 times. Remember, that was what he said he was going to do. And in fact, it happened just as Jesus said it would. The rooster still crowing when Peter remembered what Jesus had said. Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. He was ashamed and he ran away and cried because of the person who was dying so that he could go and live in heaven, that he could keep sharing the message of what Jesus did. He just said he didn't know him. And so he got really, really sad. Well, let's keep going because there's more. So we have the light orange egg. This says, then the soldiers of a governor took Jesus into the governor's headquarters, and they gathered the whole battalion before him, and they stripped him and put a scarlet robe on him, and twisted together a crown of thorns. They put it on his head, and put a reed on his right hand, and kneeling before him, they mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. Matthew 27:27 through 29. Now, what's inside the little orange egg, you may ask? Well, that is a replica of the crown of thorns. So that's what it would have looked like. After Jesus had been whipped, the soldiers took branches with thorns, twisted them in the shape of a crown, and shoved it on Jesus' head. Again, Jesus bled. Because, at that time, kings wore crowns. But they were mocking because they were saying Jesus is the King of the Jews. But they didn't want to believe that, right? So they mocked him. And so that was kind of making fun of him. That's why they put that crown on his head. And we know that because Jesus was the Son of God, he could have stopped the men from hurting him. But he let them continue. Do you know why? Because even though he hadn't done anything wrong, he had not sinned. Jesus was taking the punishment for all the wrong things that any person had ever done or would ever do. This includes you and me. I don't know if you can see this picture, but that's a picture of them mocking him. So then we have the light green egg. So they took Jesus and he went out bearing his own cross to the place that they called the place of the skull. which in Aramaic is called Golgotha. They crucified him, and with 2 others on one side of Jesus, and Jesus was in between. So that was from John 19:16 through 18. And this one's interesting. So this one is to represent the nails. Okay, they put it in the shape of a cross, but it had the nails up through his hands and through his feet. So then the soldiers took Jesus to the top of the hill outside the city. Then they used nails much, much larger than these, and they nailed him to a rough wooden cross, where he died a few hours later. The Bible tells us that Jesus was stronger than any man. The soldiers couldn't have killed Jesus if he had not let them. He could have fought off the soldiers. Why didn't he? Why wouldn't he have done that? Well, because God loves you so much, he was willing to let Jesus be punished for our sins and the things we do, or the way we react don't please God. If you remember, we've talked about this, I know. Some of your teachers have said this, but sin is anything you think, we say, or we do that remember that breaks God's law or makes him really sad, right? So sin is all those things that we do that aren't right. Maybe sin is fighting with our siblings, or arguing with mom and dad, or not listening to mom and dad, or, there's many, many things, but he died to forgive every single one of those sins. Because he loved us that much. That's a lot of love that someone has. Then we have the purple egg. So the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once there came out blood and water. From John 19:32-34. And in our purple egg, there's a spear. So that is what they pierced Jesus' side with. And of course, it was much larger. But 2 robbers were crucified with Jesus, one on each side of him. When the soldiers came to check the 3 men on the crosses, Jesus was already dead. Just to make sure, though, one of the soldiers stabbed Jesus in the side with a spear. It was sad to think that Jesus died, and he died in such a sad, cruel way. But remember that Jesus gave his life for all the sinners, including you, and including me, and including everyone on this earth. This includes you and me and all of those who tell lies, who steal from others, who disobey God in any way, and even someone like the soldier who had stabbed. Then we have the light blue egg, and it says, when it was evening, there came a rich man from Arimathea named Joseph, who also was a disciple of Jesus. He went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then Pilate ordered it to be given to him. And Jesus took the body and wrapped it in clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which had been cut out of a rock. And he rolled a great stone at the entrance of the tomb and went away. That's Matthew 27:57-60. So I have my light blue egg, and inside my light blue egg is a cloth. And this just represents what they wrapped Jesus' body in. So after Jesus died, a man came and he asked to have Jesus' body, and he buried him. But Joseph did believe, and he went to Jesus to have a proper burial. Joseph knew that this might get him in trouble with the soldiers, but he was brave and asked for permission anyway. Joseph wrapped the body of Jesus in a cloth and buried him in a tomb cut out of a rock like a shallow cave. Joseph then went away sad because Jesus was dead, and he wondered what would happen next. But then we have the pink egg. And behold, there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled back the stone and sat on it. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing white as snow. And for fear of him, the guards trembled and became like dead men. That's Matthew 28:2-4. And in this, we have a stone. Now, this stone is much smaller than what we would have seen if you were at Jesus' tomb. But it's to represent, right? So the stone that was rolled in front of Jesus' tomb was much bigger than the stone in the egg. It was as big as the door and probably weighed more than a car. A car weighs about 2,000 pounds or a little more. That's a lot. And the angels rolled it away. Jesus rolled it away. After Jesus was buried, special soldiers were assigned to stand guard at the tomb, but these men were no match for God's angels. It took just one angel to roll the stone away, and the guards were so afraid that they fainted. Now, where did the angel get strength? Well, of course, from God. God gave him his strength so that Jesus could clear the tomb. And Jesus rolled away the stone. Now, my last egg. This is a white egg. Now, I want you to think, what could be inside? We went through everything. We just went through the stone. What could be inside of this egg? So I want you to think about that where we read. But the angel said to the women, remember we said in the other story, our women came. Do not be afraid, for I know that you seek Jesus who was crucified. He is not here, for he is risen. As he said, come see the place where the Lord lay. Matthew 28, 5-6. Now, what's inside the white egg? Oh, no. It's empty. There's nothing inside of it. What a surprise. Do you think that was a surprise? Nah. Right, that's not a surprise because we know that Jesus, like he had promised, after 3 days, rose again and came out of the grave and out of the tomb, and he walked on the earth again, and he lives now in heaven beside God at the right hand of God, and he all the time talks to God about us, and he talks to God about how he died for our sins so that we didn't have to go through punishment like that. And he tells him that, hey, you know, they may have done something wrong, but when they ask for forgiveness, they're now part of my family because I died for them. And that's really pretty cool, right? Easter story is one of the coolest stories that I think I've ever read and has ever happened because it gives so much joy and so much hope, right? So we have Jesus who came to earth as a little baby, and he grew up and he grew up and he got older and he became an adult. And he served and he walked and he taught people about God, and he taught people about all the amazing things that God can do for them and that God is doing for them and that has done for them. And then he had to die. He had to die so that way we didn't have to make sacrifices of animals anymore. We didn't have to die the way he did or go through anything that he did. He did it for us. That's a lot of love, right? I don't know if you've ever maybe taken the punishment, taken the blame for something that maybe a friend or a sibling or someone has done. But that's pretty cool, right? When you do that. Sometimes, you know, it's better to tell the truth, but sometimes we help and we help take something off someone. It's kind of what Jesus did for us. He came and he said, you know what? Everyone in the world sins, no matter who you are. But I'm going to die for you so that way you can go to heaven and you can be with me and you can be part of my family. And remember, we've been talking about the past couple weeks, and the amazing thing about it is it's so simple. All we have to do to have Jesus be part of our life and to live, and that we can live for him and one day go to heaven and be with him, is just to ask. It's so simple. We just ask, right? We ask for forgiveness and we ask him to come and be part of our lives. And that's it. See, the gospel and all this isn't a crazy thing. He didn't do it to make it super complicated and you had to do anything wild. He did it and he died on the cross so we could do something so simple and just ask. So if you have already asked him to be part of your life and to forgive you of all the things that you've done wrong and that you're going to do wrong, then you're part of his family, right? And if you haven't, then now's as good a time as any to take the opportunity and just pray to Jesus and ask him, hey, you know, I want to be part of your family. Can you come and be part of my life and forgive me all the sins that I've done? And Jesus happily, as long as we mean what we say, he comes and he enters into our lives and we're not part of his family. It's that simple and that cool. So that's our Easter story. And even though we don't really talk about it as much throughout the years, maybe we should. This was the day I want you to remember that even though you're at home, we can still remember what he did for us and the fact that because he died, we can all have an opportunity to be part of his family. No matter what we've done, no matter what we're going to do, we can be part of his family, right? So if you haven't taken the opportunity, remember, all you have to do is ask. You just pray to Jesus and you ask him to be a part of your life and to forgive you of all those things that you've done wrong, right? And then even to mean it, he comes and he's part of your life and you can live for him and talk about him and share the story of what he did with your friends and your family and other people and let them know, right? So I hope you really enjoyed just really listening to our Easter story again. This week, remember, pray and thank Jesus for what he did for us. And the fact that he came and died. And the amazing part is that he rose from the grave, right? And now he lives in heaven and he talks to God about us and intercedes for us, which means goes between us and tells God that, hey, they're yours. They're part of the family, or they want to be part of the family and they've asked, right? And so all you have to do is ask. So I hope you really enjoyed it. I hope you have an amazing, amazing week this week. I still miss all of you. I miss seeing your wonderful faces. If you are not part of our church and you're just tuning in, and you have been, I have so enjoyed having you and having you listen to us each week. And I hope you have enjoyed it and got something out of it. And the next 2 weeks, we'll hop back into our story and kind of wrap that up. And we'll find out what happens with Chaz and ZJ and all the boys and what they're doing. So, I hope you're having a fantastic week and that we just remember all the amazing blessings that Jesus has given us. Have a great week, guys. Bye.